She lost her husband. I lost the illusion.
You know what they say about karma? Sometimes it comes with a side of wasabi and a receipt you didn't ask for. I'm Nick Harper, and I've been delivering food for Uber Eats for 3 years now. Started as side money when construction work got slow, but it became something more. My escape from Jessica's constant nagging about our financial situation. Funny how she never complained when I was paying for her yoga classes and weekly manicures. Tonight was supposed to be different. Jessica had packed her bags for another one of her business trips to Portland. HR director for some tech startup, always flying off to conferences and team building retreats. I'd even helped her pack, like the good husband I thought I was. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat in my beat-up Honda Civic at 11 p.m., waiting for orders to ping on my phone. Jessica's suitcase was still in my trunk. She'd forgotten it in her rush to catch her early flight. I figured I'd drop it off at her hotel later. My phone buzzed. New order. Dragon Palace sushi. Expensive stuff. $68 worth of premium rolls and sake. The delivery address made my whole body freeze. 2127 Riverside Drive, Unit 12B. I knew that address. Evan Dorn's luxury condo. Evan was Jessica's business contact, some hotshot real estate developer she'd been working with on potential partnerships. I'd met him twice at company parties. Slick hair, expensive suits, the kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and drives a Tesla with vanity plates. My hands shook as I accepted the order. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe Evan was having his own lonely dinner while Jessica was 3 states away. But my gut knew better. Dragon Palace was busy, the usual Friday night chaos. I waited 20 minutes for the order, my mind racing through possibilities. The rational part of me insisted I was being paranoid. The suspicious part, the part that had noticed Jessica's late nights, her secretive phone calls, her sudden interest in business trips, whispered darker truths. The drive to Riverside Drive took 15 minutes through downtown traffic. Evan's building was one of those glass and steel monuments to gentrification, complete with a doorman and valet parking. I'd always wondered how Jessica knew someone who lived in a place like this. I parked in the visitor spot and grabbed the sushi bags. The elevator ride to the 12th floor felt like ascending to my own execution. Each floor dinged past like a countdown to disaster. Unit 12B had a fancy brass nameplate, E. Dorn. I raised my hand to knock, then heard it. Jessica's laugh. That specific giggle she used to do when we first started dating. The one I hadn't heard in months. I knocked anyway. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Jessica stood there in an oversized button-down shirt that definitely wasn't hers, her hair messed up, lipstick smudged. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Her face went through a spectacular range of emotions. Surprise, guilt, fear, and finally, defiance. "Nick," she said, like my name tasted bitter. "What are you doing here?" I held up the sushi bags. "Uber Eats delivery." "Funny thing, though, I thought you were supposed to be in Portland." "I can explain." "No need." I walked past her into the condo. Evan was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, wearing nothing but boxer shorts and a smirk. The coffee table had 2 wine glasses and what looked like Jessica's earrings scattered next to them. "Hey there, buddy," Evan said, his voice dripping with false friendliness. "Thanks for the food. Just leave it on the counter." I set the bags down slowly, my mind crystal clear for the first time in months. All those late nights Jessica claimed she was working. All those weekend conferences. All those times she'd been too tired for dinner together, but somehow had energy for her mysterious business meetings. "You know what's funny, Evan?" I said, turning to face him. "My wife told me she was catching a 6 a.m. flight to Portland this morning. But here she is, wearing your shirt in your apartment at 11 p.m. on a Friday night." Evan's smirk faltered. "Look, man, this isn't what—" "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like." I walked back to the door where Jessica still stood frozen. "Speaking of things you forgot." I opened the door and dragged her suitcase from the hallway where I'd left it. "You might need this since you're obviously not coming home." Jessica finally found her voice. "Nick, please, let me explain. It's complicated. Actually, it's pretty simple." I looked between them, feeling strangely calm. "You're cheating on me with real estate, Ken, here, and you've been lying about it for God knows how long. The only complicated part is figuring out that how long you two have been making a fool out of me." "It's not like that," Jessica said, tears starting. "We never meant for this to happen." "Right. You accidentally fell onto his Johnson. Multiple times, in multiple cities. I shook my head. Save the performance for someone who gives a care. Evan stepped forward, puffing out his chest. Hey, buddy, maybe you should calm down. I turned on him so fast he actually stepped back. Call me buddy one more time, Evan. I dare you. I've spent 8 hours today operating heavy machinery and dealing with concrete. You spent it playing house with my wife. Guess which one of us is having a better night? The threat hung in the air. Evan, for all his expensive clothes and fancy apartment, looked like he'd never been in a real fight in his life. Look, he said, hands raised. Nobody wanted it to happen this way. Then you shouldn't have let it happen at all. I picked up the sushi bags and held them out to Jessica. Here's your dinner. And here's your tip. Find somewhere else to sleep tonight, because the locks are getting changed first thing tomorrow morning. Jessica's tears turned to anger. You can't just throw me out. It's my house too. Was your house. Past tense, you made your choice. I headed for the door, then stopped. Oh, and Evan, next time you order delivery, maybe check the driver's name first. Might save you some embarrassment. I left them standing there, Jessica crying, Evan looking like he'd swallowed something sour. The elevator ride down felt like descending from chaos back to earth. In my car, I sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. 3 years of marriage, 5 years together total. All of it a lie, apparently. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Nick, please come back. We need to talk about this like adults. I typed back. Adults don't cheat on their spouses, enjoy the sushi. Then I blocked her number. Saturday morning hit like a hangover I didn't deserve. I'd spent the night on Big Mike's couch, partly because I needed somewhere to crash and partly because I needed someone to talk me out of doing something stupid. Mike Kowalski had been my foreman for 2 years and my friend for longer. 6'4", built like a brick wall, with a Polish temper and a heart bigger than his biceps. When I'd shown up at his door at midnight, he'd taken one look at my face and handed me a beer. So what's the plan, boss? Mike asked over coffee and eggs. His kitchen was bachelor basic but clean, the kind of place where everything had a purpose and nothing was just for show. Step 1, change the locks. Step 2, move her stuff out. Step 3, figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life. What about step 4, make them pay? I looked at him over my coffee mug. Mike had been through his own divorce 3 years ago, and it hadn't been pretty. His ex-wife had tried to take half his construction business and his truck. She'd settled for alimony and his boat. I'm not looking for revenge, Mike. I just want them out of my life. Bees. He leaned back in his chair. You're pissed, and you should be. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. Nick? Jessica's voice, shaky and desperate. Please don't hang up. We need to talk. We needed to talk 6 months ago, before you started screwing Evan. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're cheating on me. You lied about it, and you got caught. End of story. Nick, please, I love you. This thing with Evan, it's complicated. He was there when you were working all the time, and I was lonely. So you decided to cure your loneliness by jumping into bed with another man. Great solution, Jess. Really shows your problem-solving skills. Mike was watching me, eyebrows raised. He made a hang-up gesture, but I wasn't done yet. Where are you calling from? I asked. I'm at Trina's. Trina was Jessica's best friend, a gossipy real estate agent who'd never liked me. Perfect choice for a hideout. Good. Stay there. I'll have your stuff packed and ready for pickup by tonight. Nick, you can't just... I hung up and immediately blocked the new number. Feel better? Mike asked. Not even close. We spent the morning at Home Depot, buying new locks and deadbolts. Mike insisted on coming with me to the house, claiming he needed to supervise the installation. Really, he was there in case Evan or Jessica showed up looking for trouble. The house felt different when we walked in. Same furniture, same pictures on the walls, same coffee mug Jessica had left in the sink yesterday morning. But now it all felt contaminated, like evidence of a crime scene. Nice place, Mike said, looking around. Shame she had to go and screw it up. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you marry someone who thinks the grass is always greener. We changed the locks first. Front door, back door, and the side entrance from the garage. Mike worked with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before, while I started the more emotionally complicated task of packing Jessica's belongings. Her closet was a monument to expensive taste and poor financial judgment. Designer dresses, dozens of shoes, handbags that cost more than my monthly truck payment. I'd never questioned where the money came from. Jessica made good money in HR, and I figured she was just better at budgeting than me. Now I wondered how much of this stuff Evan had bought for her. "You want me to box this up?" Mike asked, standing in the doorway. "Nah, I need to do it." I pulled a suitcase from the top shelf. "Besides, you might learn things about women's underwear that would traumatize you." "Brother, I've been traumatized by worse." As I packed, I found things that made my stomach turn. A receipt for dinner at Romano's, the expensive Italian place downtown, dated 2 weeks ago when Jessica claimed she was working late. A hotel key card from the Marriott downtown. A jewelry box I'd never seen before, containing a necklace I definitely hadn't bought. The worst part wasn't the evidence of her cheating. It was realizing how stupid I'd been. All the signs were there, and I'd ignored every single one because I'd wanted to trust my wife. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. "Nick, it's Evan. We should talk man to man about this situation." I showed the message to Mike, who snorted, "Man to man? This from the guy who was screwing another man's wife?" I typed back, "We can talk when you're ready to apologize for being a piece of crap. Until then, stay away from me and my house." The response came immediately. "There's no need to be hostile. We're all adults here." "Adults don't sleep with married women," I replied. "Children do, which explains a lot about your behavior." Mike laughed. "Wow, Nick. Remind me never to piss you off." We finished packing by 4 p.m. 8 boxes of clothes, 2 suitcases of personal items, and a garbage bag full of cosmetics and bathroom stuff. Looking at it all stacked by the front door, I was struck by how little physical space a marriage actually occupied. "You want me to drop this off at her friend's place?" Mike offered. "Nah, I've got a better idea." I loaded everything into my truck and drove to Evan's building. The same doorman was on duty, an elderly black man named Charles who'd been polite but distant during last night's disaster. "Afternoon, Charles," I said, wheeling a dolly loaded with boxes toward the elevator. "Delivery for Mr. Dorn in 12B. Charles looked at the boxes, then at me, and his expression shifted to something like understanding. "You need any help with those, sir?" "I got it, thanks." I took the elevator to the 12th floor and stacked all of Jessica's belongings outside Evan's door. Then I knocked. Evan answered wearing a silk bathrobe and an annoyed expression. "What the heck are you doing here?" "Delivery service. Your girlfriend's stuff." I gestured to the pile of boxes. "Sign here." I held out a piece of paper, actually just a grocery receipt I'd found in my pocket. "This is harassment," Evan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "This is convenience. Now you don't have to sneak around to her place to grab her things." I looked past him into the apartment. "She here? That's none of your business. Actually, it is my business. She's still legally my wife until the divorce is final. Which reminds me, you might want to get a good lawyer, Evan. Adultery's still grounds for divorce in this state, and it affects property settlement." His face went pale. "You can't prove anything." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken last night. Jessica, in his shirt, standing in his doorway, looking guilty as heck. "Want to bet?" Evan stared at the photo, then at me. "What do you want?" "Nothing from you, but here's some free advice. Stay away from me. Don't call, don't text, don't show up at my job or my house. Because next time we meet, I might not be feeling so generous." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there with 8 boxes of evidence that his life was about to get very complicated. Monday morning brought 2 things: a call from Jessica's lawyer and a visit from my soon-to-be ex-wife herself. The lawyer call came first. Patricia Hoffman, some downtown shark Jessica had hired to protect her interests. She had that crisp, professional voice that lawyers use when they're about to screw you over. "Mr. Harper, I represent Jessica Harper in the dissolution of your marriage. We need to discuss temporary support and property division." "Here's what we need to discuss," I said, sipping coffee in my newly Jessica-free kitchen. "Your client committed adultery. I have photos, I have witnesses, and I have a paper trail of her lies. She gets nothing." "Mr. Harper, that's not how divorce law works. Then maybe your client should have thought about that before she decided to play house with her boyfriend." I hung up and immediately called my own lawyer, Tom Bradley. Tom had handled Mike's divorce and came highly recommended for his ability to play hardball. Nick, good to hear from you. Mike told me you might be calling. I need a divorce, Tom. Fast, clean, and in my favor. Tell me everything. I spent 20 minutes laying out the whole story. Tom listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. This is actually pretty straightforward, he said when I finished. Adultery, abandonment of the marital home, and if what you're telling me about her spending is true, possible financial misconduct. How much evidence do you have? Photos of her at his place, hotel receipts, restaurant bills for dates I wasn't on, jewelry I didn't buy, plus whatever digital trail she left behind. Good. Don't talk to her or her lawyer without me present. Don't make any agreements, don't sign anything, and whatever you do, don't do anything stupid like confronting the boyfriend. Too late for that last part. What did you do? Delivered her stuff to his apartment. Had a polite conversation about staying away from me. Tom was quiet for a moment. Define polite conversation. No threats, no violence, no property damage. Just a friendly suggestion that he might want to avoid me in the future. Okay, that's not terrible, but no more contact with either of them. Let me handle this from now on. I agreed, but the universe had other plans. Jessica showed up at my house that afternoon using her key before realizing I'd changed the locks. I watched through the window as she stood on the porch, looking confused and angry. She knocked, then pounded, then finally resorted to shouting, "Nick, open the door! We need to talk." I opened it but kept the screen door locked between us. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, makeup smeared, wearing the same clothes I'd seen her in at Evan's place. "Nice look," I said. "Very woman-scorn chic." "Don't be an a-hole, Nick. This is serious." "You're right. Adultery is serious. So is lying to your husband for months. I never meant for this to happen, but it did happen multiple times, in multiple places, with multiple lies to cover it up." Jessica's face crumpled. "I made a mistake, okay? I was lonely and Evan was there, and things just happened." "Things didn't just happen, Jess. You made choices. You chose to go to dinner with him. You chose to go to his apartment. You chose to lie to me about business trips while you were screwing around. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Enlighten me." She was crying now, the kind of ugly crying that used to make me want to comfort her. Now it just made me tired. Evan made me feel special, like I mattered. "You were always working, always tired, never wanted to go out or do anything fun." "I was working to pay for this house, to pay for your car, your clothes, your yoga classes, your girls' nights out. Apparently, I was also paying for you to have enough free time to cheat on me. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it came out bitter. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you asking for marriage counseling. Fair would have been you telling me you were unhappy instead of lying about it. Fair would have been you filing for divorce before you started seeing another man." Jessica flinched, like I'd slapped her. "Don't talk to me like that. I'll talk to you however I want. You lost the right to tone police me when you decided to cheat." "Nick, please. I love you. I want to work this out." "No, you don't. You love the idea of not being the bad guy. You love the idea of having your cake and eating it too. But you don't love me because people who love their spouses don't do what you did." I started to close the door, but she pressed against the screen. "What about Evan?" she asked desperately. "What if I never see him again? What if I cut off all contact? Then you'll be a cheater who's not currently cheating. That doesn't make you not a cheater." Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, Jess. Not everyone makes the same mistake repeatedly for 6 months while lying about it to their spouse's face. She was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks. A year ago, this would have broken my heart. Now it just felt like justice. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe ask Evan or Trina or any of the friends who knew about this and didn't tell me." "What friends? Oh, come on. You think Trina didn't know? You think none of your work friends noticed you disappearing with Evan? You think nobody saw you two together at restaurants and hotels?" The look on her face told me I was right. Other people had known, and nobody had thought to mention it to me. "They were trying to protect you. They were protecting you. There's a difference." I closed the door and locked it, leaving her crying on the porch. She stayed there for another 10 minutes, alternately begging and threatening, before finally giving up and driving away. That night, I got a text from Mike. "Heard through the grapevine that your wife's been telling people you threw her out for no reason. Thought you should know." I stared at the message, feeling something cold and angry settling in my chest. It was one thing for Jessica to cheat on me. It was another thing entirely for her to lie about what happened afterward. I called Mike back. What exactly is she saying? According to Lola at Murphy's bar, your wife came in crying yesterday, telling anyone who'd listen that you kicked her out because you were jealous of her success at work. Said you couldn't handle her making more money than you. Lola was the bartender at Murphy's, the local dive, where half the construction crews in town went after work. If Jessica was spreading lies there, it would get back to my coworkers within days. Did Lola believe her? Lola's got more sense than that, but some people did. Word is, Jessica's painting herself as the victim of an unhealthy marriage. The cold anger in my chest turned hot. Unhealthy? That's what I heard. Might want to get ahead of this, Nick. I hung up and immediately called Tom Bradley. Tom, we have a problem. Jessica's telling people I was harmful, and that's why she left. Crap. That complicates things. Any truth to it? Not even close. I never laid a hand on her, never threatened her, never even raised my voice until I caught her cheating. Good. We'll need witnesses to your character, and we'll need to document every interaction you have with her from now on. This sounds like she's building a case for claiming she deserves more in the divorce because she was fleeing an unsafe situation. Can she do that? If people believe her, yes. Courts tend to be sympathetic to misuse victims, even when the misuse claims are questionable. I spent the rest of the night making a list of people who could testify to my character, Mike, obviously, my boss at the construction company, neighbors who'd seen how Jessica and I interacted. The problem was, most of our mutual friends were really Jessica's friends, and if she was already working on them with her sob story, I might be fighting an uphill battle. The next morning brought another surprise. Evan, standing in my driveway when I left for work. We need to talk, he said, blocking my path to the truck. No, we don't. I tried to step around him, but he moved to block me again. Jessica's a mess because of what you did. What I did? I turned to face him fully. What I did was catch my wife cheating and ask her to leave. What you did was screw a married woman and break up a marriage. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You knew she was married. You knew what you were doing was wrong. You did it anyway. Evan puffed up his chest, trying to look intimidating. Jessica told me how you really treated her. The emotional misuse, the controlling behavior. I laughed in his face. Emotional misuse? I worked 60 hours a week to pay for her lifestyle while she was screwing you in hotels. If that's misuse, then I'm guilty as charged. She said you isolated her from her friends. Her friends knew she was cheating and didn't tell me. Maybe she isolated herself. She said you never let her go out. She went out plenty, apparently with you. Evan's face was getting red. You're twisting everything. I'm stating facts. You want to twist things? Let's talk about how you pursued a married woman. Let's talk about how you helped her lie to her husband. Let's talk about how you're now helping her spread false stories about misuse to cover up her own crafty behavior. I love her, Evan said, like that explained everything. No, you don't. You love the thrill of taking something that belonged to someone else. You love feeling superior to the blue-collar husband who was too stupid to see what was happening. But you don't love Jessica, because if you did, you would have told her to fix her marriage or end it before starting something with you. I stepped closer to him, close enough that he had to look up to meet my eyes. Here's what's going to happen, Evan. You're going to stop showing up at my house. You're going to stop sending me messages. And you're going to stop helping Jessica spread lies about me. Because if you don't, I'm going to make your life very uncomfortable. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I know where you work, where you live, and where you like to eat dinner. I know you're leveraged up to your eyeballs on real estate deals that could go south if the right people started asking questions. I know you've got a reputation to maintain in a business that runs on trust and relationships. Evan's face went pale. I can't what? Tell the truth about what kind of man you are? Watch me. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving him standing in my driveway looking like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. That afternoon, Tom called with an update. I've filed the divorce papers, adultery, abandonment, and I'm asking for the house, the cars, and no alimony. Her lawyer's going to fight it, but we've got a strong case. What about her misuse claims? I've been making some calls. Turns out Jessica's story has some holes in it. She told 3 different versions to 3 different people, and none of them match. Plus, I found 2 witnesses who saw her with Evan at restaurants months ago, which contradicts her timeline about when the affair started. Good. What's next? Next, we let her lawyer know what we know and see if they want to settle quietly or fight this in court. My guess is they'll settle once they realize how bad this looks for her. And if they don't, Then we go to court and destroy her credibility in front of a judge. Either way, you're going to come out of this okay. I hung up feeling better than I had in days. Maybe Jessica thought she could rewrite history and paint herself as the victim. But the truth had a way of coming out. The truth and a little help from people who knew how to find it. The war escalated on Thursday when I got home from work to find my truck keyed and both tires on the driver's side slashed. Unbelievable mess, I muttered, walking around the damage. Someone had carved a hole into the paint on the driver's side door, and the tires were cut clean through. Professional job, not random vandalism. I called the police first, then Tom, then Mike. The cops took a report but weren't optimistic about finding who did it. Tom was furious and started talking about restraining orders. Mike just asked if I needed him to come over with his baseball bat. It's not Jessica's style, I told Mike as we waited for the tow truck. She's more passive-aggressive than this. What about the boyfriend? Maybe. Or maybe one of Jessica's friends decided to take matters into their own hands. The tow truck driver was a guy named Pete who'd worked construction before getting into automotive. He looked at the damage and whistled low. "Someone really doesn't like you," he said. "This is personal." Yeah, I got that impression. While Pete loaded my truck, my neighbor Mrs. Chen came over. She was in her 70s, a retired teacher who kept an eye on the whole neighborhood. "Nick, I saw who did this," she said quietly. "It was that friend of Jessica's, the blonde one with the loud laugh." "Trina? That's her. She was here around noon, spent about 10 minutes working on your truck with something from her purse." I thought about calling the police, but I wanted to talk to you first. I thanked Mrs. Chen and immediately called Tom with the information. "Perfect," he said. "File another police report naming Trina specifically. This gives us ammunition to argue that Jessica's coordinating harassment against you." "Can we prove Jessica was involved?" "We don't have to prove it. We just have to make it look likely. And a pattern of harassment from Jessica's friends right after she starts spreading misuse allegations, that's going to look very suspicious to a judge." The next morning brought a call from Jessica's lawyer. "Mr. Harper, we need to discuss your client's behavior," Patricia Hoffman said. "He's been stalking and threatening my client and her friend." "That's interesting," Tom replied. "Because my client's truck was vandalized yesterday by your client's friend Trina Walsh. We have a witness and a police report. Want to talk about threatening behavior?" There was silence on the other end of the line. "My client is prepared to be reasonable about the property settlement," Hoffman finally said. "Your client should have thought about being reasonable before she committed adultery and then tried to frame my client as an aggressor. We're not settling." "Mr. Bradley, perhaps we should discuss this in person. We can discuss it in court. Have a nice day." Tom hung up and turned to me with a grin. They're scared. When lawyers start talking about being reasonable, it means they know they're losing. So what happens now? Now we turn up the heat. That afternoon, I got a call from Big Mike. "Nick, you need to get down to Murphy's bar right now." "What's going on?" "Just get down here. Trust me." Murphy's was busy for a Thursday afternoon, filled with the usual mix of construction workers, truck drivers, and local regulars. I found Mike at the bar talking to Lola, who looked angrier than I'd ever seen her. "Tell him what you told me," Mike said. Lola was a tough woman in her 50s who'd been bartending for 20 years. She'd heard every sob story and seen every kind of drama the neighborhood had to offer. Nothing usually fazed her. "Your wife came in here Tuesday night," she said, polishing a glass with more force than necessary. "Started crying about how you threw her out, how you were controlling and harmful, how she was afraid of you." "I heard about that. Yeah, well, what you didn't hear is what happened next. She got drunk and started talking about how she was going to destroy you. Said she was going to take everything you had and make sure everyone in town knew what a bastard you were." My blood went cold. "She said that?" "Word for word. Said her boyfriend was going to help her, that he had connections and money to make your life heck. Said by the time she was done with you, you'd be broke and unemployable." "Did anyone else hear this?" "Half the bar heard it, including Danny Morrison. Danny Morrison was a local contractor who subcontracted work to my company. If he thought I was trouble, it could affect my job." "What did Danny say?" "Danny told her she was full of crap and that everyone knew you were a stand-up guy. Then he bought a round for the house and started telling stories about what a good worker you were." I felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "I need to thank Danny." "You need to do more than that," Lola said. "You need to fight back. This woman is trying to destroy your reputation, and she's not being subtle about it. Mike nodded. Lola's right. You've been playing defense this whole time. Maybe it's time to go on offense. What do you mean? I mean, maybe it's time people knew the truth about why your marriage ended. I thought about it. Tom had told me not to discuss the case publicly, but he'd also said we needed to protect my reputation. And if Jessica was openly trying to destroy me, maybe I needed to defend myself. What did you have in mind? Lola smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Leave that to me. That night, I got a call from Trina. She was crying and could barely speak coherently. Nick, please, you have to call off your lawyer. He's ruining my life. What are you talking about? The police came to my work today. They questioned me about your truck. My boss is furious, and I might lose my job. Maybe you should have thought about that before you vandalized my property. I was just trying to help Jessica. By committing a crime, that's some help. She's my best friend, and she's falling apart. You destroyed her life. I caught her cheating and asked her to leave. She destroyed her own life. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, and if you ever come near my house or my property again, the police will be the least of your problems. I hung up and immediately called Tom to report the conversation. Good, he said. Document everything. Every call, every text, every contact. We're building a case that they're harassing you. What about going public with the truth? What do you mean? Jessica's been telling everyone I'm an aggressor. Maybe it's time people knew why she really left. Tom was quiet for a moment. That's risky. If you start talking publicly about the affair, her lawyer could argue that you're trying to humiliate her. She's trying to humiliate me. I know. Let me think about this. There might be a way to get the truth out without it looking like you're the one spreading it. The next morning, I found out what he meant. Lola called me at work, laughing. You need to check Facebook, she said. Someone posted some very interesting information about your wife's extracurricular activities. I pulled up Facebook on my phone and found a post in the neighborhood community group. It was from someone named Concerned Neighbor and included photos of Jessica and Evan at 3 different restaurants along with timestamps showing they were all taken during Jessica's supposed business trips. The post read, Ladies, be careful of your husbands around Jessica Harper. This married woman has been having an affair with Evan Dorn for months while lying to her husband about business trips. The photos speak for themselves. Within an hour, the post had 50 comments and had been shared dozens of times. Jessica's friends were defending her, but they were outnumbered by people expressing shock and disappointment. My phone started ringing immediately. Nick, did you see? It was my boss, Frank Castellano. I saw it. Jesus Christ. Is this why she left? Yeah. And she's been telling people you were harmful? Apparently. Frank was quiet for a moment. You know what? Forget that. I've known you for 5 years, and you're one of the most even-tempered guys I've ever worked with. Anyone who believes you're harmful doesn't know you at all. Thanks, Frank. Don't thank me. Just keep your head down and let this blow over. And if anyone gives you crap about it, you let me know. The calls kept coming all day. Some were supportive, some were curious, and a few were hostile. But the overall reaction was clear. People were more shocked by Jessica's affair than convinced by her misuse allegations. That afternoon, Tom called with an update. Jessica's lawyer wants to meet. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. What do they want? To settle. The Facebook post changed everything. Jessica's credibility is shot, and they know it. What kind of settlement are they offering? We'll find out tomorrow. But I'm guessing they're going to be a lot more reasonable than they were last week. That night, I sat in my Jessica-free house, drinking a beer and thinking about how quickly everything had changed. A week ago, I'd been a married man who thought he had a solid relationship. Now I was a single man whose cheating wife was trying to destroy his reputation. But I was also a man who'd learned that he had more friends than he'd realized. People who believed in him, who supported him, who were willing to fight for him when he needed it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, You're right, it's just getting started. Then I blocked the number and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring the settlement meeting, and with it, hopefully the beginning of the end of this nightmare. But something told me Jessica and Evan weren't going to go quietly. The settlement meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. at Tom's office downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing my best suit and carrying a folder full of evidence that Tom had prepared. Jessica was already there with her lawyer, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. Her hair was stringy, Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and she was wearing a cheap dress I'd never seen before. Evan was conspicuously absent. "Harper," Patricia Hoffman said without warmth. "Thank you for coming." Tom gestured for me to sit across from them at the conference table. "Let's get started. What are you proposing?" Hoffman slid a document across the table. "My client is willing to waive her claim to alimony in exchange for half the equity in the marital home and one of the vehicles." Tom didn't even look at the document. "Counteroffer. Your client gets her personal belongings and nothing else." "That's completely unreasonable. What's unreasonable is your client committing adultery, abandoning the marital home, and then launching a campaign of harassment and defamation against my client." Jessica spoke for the first time. "Nick, please. I know I made mistakes, but I don't have anywhere to go. I lost my job. My friends won't talk to me." "You lost your job?" I asked, genuinely surprised. She nodded, tears starting. "They said my personal life was affecting my professional reputation. They gave me 2 weeks severance and told me not to come back." I felt a moment of sympathy, then remembered the Facebook post about her threatening to destroy me. "What about Evan? Can he help you?" Jessica's face crumpled. "Evan said he needs space to figure things out. He's not returning my calls." Of course he wasn't. Evan had gotten what he wanted, the thrill of the affair, and now that it came with consequences, he was running. "That's not my problem," I said. "You made your choices." "Nick, please," Tom interrupted. "Ms. Harper, let's focus on the legal issues. Your client committed adultery. In this state, that affects property division. She's also engaged in harassment and defamation. We have witnesses, we have documentation, and we have a strong case." Hoffman whispered something to Jessica, who shook her head violently. "My client maintains that the marriage was troubled long before any alleged affair." "Alleged?" Tom pulled out a folder and spread photos across the table. "These were taken over a 6-month period? Your client and Mr. Dorn at restaurants, hotels, and his apartment. The timestamps correspond exactly with dates when she told my client she was traveling for business." Jessica stared at the photos like they were evidence of a crime, which legally they kind of were. "Furthermore," Tom continued, "we have documentation of your client's threats to destroy my client, made publicly at Murphy's bar. We have evidence that her friend Trina Walsh vandalized my client's vehicle at your client's behest. And we have records of harassing phone calls and text messages." He slid another document across the table. "This is our final offer. Ms. Harper gets her personal belongings, her car, and we agree not to pursue charges for harassment and vandalism. In exchange, she signs a non-disclosure agreement and agrees to stop making false statements about my client." Hoffman read the document, her face getting paler with each paragraph. "This is extremely punitive. This is extremely generous," Tom replied. "The alternative is we go to court, where all of this becomes public record, and your client gets even less." Jessica was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Nick, we were married for 3 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I looked at her across the table. This woman I'd loved, who I'd thought I'd spend my life with, and felt nothing but exhaustion. "It meant everything to me," I said quietly. "That's why what you did hurt so much. I can change. You had 3 years to be the person you should have been. You chose to be someone else instead." Jessica turned to her lawyer. "What if I don't sign?" Hoffman looked at Tom, who was wearing the expression of a shark who smelled blood in the water. "Then we go to trial," Tom said, "where a judge will hear about your affair, your lies, your harassment campaign, and your attempts to frame my client as an aggressor. You'll get less than what we're offering now, and it will all be public record forever." Jessica stared at the settlement agreement for a long moment, then picked up a pen with a shaking hand. "Where do I sign?" The paperwork took another hour to complete. Jessica signed document after document, each one officially ending our marriage and her claims to anything I'd worked for. When it was done, she sat in her chair looking like she'd been hollowed out. "Jessica," I said as we prepared to leave, "for what it's worth, I'm sorry it ended this way." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "Are you really?" I thought about it. "I'm sorry you made the choices you made. I'm sorry you threw away something good for something that was never going to last. But I'm not sorry it's over." She nodded and walked out of the conference room without another word. Tom and I went to lunch to celebrate, but I didn't feel much like celebrating. Mostly, I felt tired. "You did the right thing," Tom said over sandwiches. She could have destroyed your reputation, your career, everything. Instead, she ends up with nothing and a legal agreement to keep her mouth shut. I know, it just feels weird. 3 years ago, I was planning to spend my life with her. 3 years ago, you thought you knew who she was. Turns out you were married to someone else entirely. That afternoon, I drove home to my empty house and sat in the kitchen, thinking about what came next. I was 38 years old, divorced, and starting over. It wasn't where I'd planned to be, but it wasn't the worst place either. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Heard it went well? Beer tonight? I was about to reply when another message came in, this one from an unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Evan has friends and they don't like being embarrassed. I stared at the message, feeling the familiar anger rise in my chest. Jessica was legally bound to leave me alone, but apparently Evan wasn't ready to let it go. I forwarded the message to Tom, then typed back, "Tell Evan I said hi, and tell him if he wants to escalate this, I'm ready." The response came immediately. "You have no idea who you're messing with." I laughed out loud. After everything I'd been through in the past 2 weeks, some anonymous tough guy routine wasn't going to intimidate me. I typed back, "Actually, I know exactly who I'm messing with. A coward who seduces married women and then runs when there are consequences. Tell him I'll be at Murphy's bar tonight if he wants to discuss this face to face." No response. I called Mike back. "Beer sounds good. Murphy's at 7. You got it. Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. But I think we might have some entertainment tonight." At 7 p.m., Murphy's was packed with the usual crowd. Word had gotten around about the settlement, and people kept buying me drinks and congratulating me. By 8 p.m., I was feeling pretty good about life. At 8:30, Evan walked in. He'd brought 2 friends, big guys in expensive suits who looked like they'd never done a day of manual labor in their lives. The bar got quiet as they made their way to where I was sitting. "Nick Harper?" Evan said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's me." I turned around on my bar stool, beer in hand. "Evan Dorn, right? Jessica's ex-boyfriend?" His face flushed red. "We need to talk." "So talk." "Outside." I looked at his 2 friends, then at Big Mike, who had moved to stand behind me. "I'm comfortable right here. Say what you came to say." Evan looked around the bar, realizing that everyone was watching and listening. "You cost me a lot of money and embarrassment with your little stunt." "What stunt was that?" "The Facebook post, the photos, dragging my name through the mud." "I didn't post anything on Facebook." "And those photos? Those were just documentation of reality. Bees. You orchestrated the whole thing to make me look bad." I stood up and Evan's friends tensed, but I just smiled and raised my beer. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the bar, "I'd like you to meet Evan Dorn. He's the guy who spent 6 months seeing my wife while I was working 60 hours a week to pay for her lifestyle." The bar erupted in boos and catcalls. Someone threw a peanut at Evan. "He's also the guy," I continued, "who convinced her to lie about being mistreated so she could get more money in the divorce. And now he's here with his 2 friends to intimidate me because his girlfriend dumped him when the affair became public." More boos. Someone started chanting "a-hole," and others joined in. Evan's face was purple now. "You son of a witch!" "I'm the son of a witch?" I laughed. "Evan, you screwed another man's wife for 6 months and helped her try to destroy my reputation. What does that make you?" One of his friends stepped forward. "Maybe we should take this outside." Big Mike moved to stand next to me. "Maybe you should shut your mouth before you say something stupid." Lola leaned across the bar. "Gentlemen, I think it's time for you to leave. This is a neighborhood bar, and you're not from the neighborhood." Evan looked around the room, realizing he was outnumbered and out of his element. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is," I replied. "Jessica signed the papers today. The divorce is final. She's out of my life, and so are you. Find someone else's marriage to wreck." Evan and his friends left without another word, to cheers and applause from the bar. Lola poured me another beer. "On the house. That was beautiful." Mike clapped me on the back. "Wow, Nick. Remind me never to cross you." I raised my beer to the room. "Thanks, everyone. It's good to know who your real friends are." The celebration went on until closing time. I stumbled home around 2 a.m., drunk on beer and victory, feeling better than I had in months. My phone had 3 missed calls from unknown numbers, but no messages. I deleted them without listening and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to find my truck in the driveway, repaired and detailed, with a note on the windshield. From your friends at Murphy's, welcome back to the single life. I stood in my driveway looking at my house, my truck, my life, and realized something. I was free. Free from Jessica's lies, free from Evan's threats, free from the weight of a marriage that had been built on deception. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life I had. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Divorce is officially final, as of this morning. Congratulations. I typed back, thanks for everything. Then I got in my truck and drove to work, ready to start the next chapter of my life. Sometimes the best delivery is when you leave the baggage behind and drive away empty-handed.